Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you some important tips you can't afford to miss as we prepare for our semester design final presentation. The first thing is your bubble diagram. Now, this is important, and during jury today, I discovered that most of us are missing our bubble diagram, but it's with your bubble diagram, somebody can easily look at your work and say this person has a good understanding of what they are designing. So why is bubble diagram important? Bubble diagram is important because it will show that first of all, you know the major spaces, and secondly, that you know how they interact. Now, it is not compulsory to show everything in your bubble diagram. In fact, I like to keep my bubble diagram simple. It's very important to keep it simple because you don't have time and your building is not too complex. So, in the case of our primary healthcare, we have 4 major spaces or 5, let me see. It can be 6, but you have the nurses station because it's central to hospital design. You have your outpatient department that can house many things like the laboratories and consultation rooms. You have the maternity and emergency that can house theater, treatment rooms, clinic labor delivery. Then you have the wards. So depending on how many zones you have, keep it less than 6 to 7 major spaces. I know there are other ancillary spaces inside those major spaces, but it's always good to keep it as simple as possible. So what you want to do is to keep your bubble diagram this way. So for the hospital, we have the nurses station at the center, and then this nurses station actually leads us to quite a few spaces. So it can take us to the wards because the nurses manage the hospital as a whole. It can take us to the accident and emergency / the maternity area also. It can also take us to the outpatient department. Now, I might have more things to add, and I might have maybe between the wards and the accident and emergency is where I might have my maternity if I wanted to keep it there also. It's very possible. But the starting point for your analysis should be that you know the key space that flows within your bubble diagram. And so for the hospital, for example, it's always the nurses station. When creating a bubble diagram, avoid using the term like lobby to link up all the whole spaces. Even if a corridor is the main space, that means a corridor is just linking the spaces in that group together. So they might be in one bubble diagram. If a corridor is linking 2 spaces, then those spaces are actually in the same area in your bubble diagram. So after sorting out your bubble diagram for the primary health center, the next thing you want to look at is how to develop your form. Many architectural buildings already have typology of forms. So if you look at hospital design, for example, this is just a research paper I saw online and classification of hospital based on build forms. So we have this linked or pavilion, we have the street view, we have atrium or galleria view, we have multi-courtyard view, monoblock. This is not everything you can get, but this is a starting point. So it goes to show you understand to some certain degree how hospitals work. If you do your research even further, like you can see on my screen, you can see other design layouts. So it's not just those basic forms. We have H form, L form, T-shaped form for hospitals. And the forms are actually based on their circulation routes. So the most important thing in hospital is the circulation routes and how they connect to the nurses station and how they connect to the other areas in the building, considering ventilation, lighting, and all these other things that make the building comfortable. So what our advice is, once you look at the various typologies, this is not exhaustive, there are many. You pick one that rhymes more with your floor plan. The issue I saw today is that majority of you guys are sticking to courtyard design. Like, it's almost, in my jury, a lot of you had designs that looked similar, and it's not pushing creativity. Everybody's just in the middle, and I don't understand. So we have these different typologies. You can explore them. In fact, it should discourage you if everybody in your class is using one typology, and then you join them to use that type. You should be creative and try to expand. Once that is done, once you've explored with your form and understand the bubble diagram, the design of the plan should flow. When you are presenting your plan, you present it to the key spaces. What I mean is that you talk about your nurses station, their position, their importance, and then from there you go ahead. Look at an image of a nurses station in a hospital. Nurses station is almost like the major reception area, but it's not just a reception. It contains data about you, it holds your records, and people wait and they communicate from there to the doctor's office and back. And the nurses care for you much more than any other staff in the hospital. So designing the nurses station, making it elaborate, comfortable in any hospital of any size is very important. And they always coordinate movement, so they should not be tucked away where nobody can reach them. They should be able to look at and coordinate movement within the hospital. Finally, looking at creativity at the end of your design, because come to think of it, if you are designing a building, it has to bring out some uniqueness about you. If you've understood the different zones, if you've sorted out your bubble diagram, if you've had an idea of the form, before you go and start tracing out your floor plan in just completely, you have to think about the final view of your design. Now, nobody can teach creativity, but you can have a philosophy about what you want. The first step is, I know most of us want to design contemporary buildings like without roof, and not like without roof, but like hiding a roof. There are many ideas you can push forward to building design. One of them has to do with playing around with your form and your roof. You see, your roof and your building can become a single element. You can play around with curves, with edges, with other forms. You can have ideas that may not just be ordinary, but will not affect the core layout and functionality of your building. So another way to channel creativity is to know what kind of building you want, because there might be a style of building that you want to just go futuristic. Some people might want to make it contemporary but have some African touch to it. You might just want to make it contemporary just like that. So you know the style you're aiming for, and then go for it in your design. And with that, I hope you'll be able to get something nice and wonderful. Now, for the people designing the architect residence and firm, the thing about this particular brief is that it's a challenge to your ability to create something that is out of the ordinary, because an architect is a creative person, and so an architect's house by default should be beautiful or should be challenging the status quo. The first thing you need to know about this design is basically that it's a combination of two uses that are starkly different. One is for an office space and the other one is for a living space. So you prefer the residence to be private and the office to be public. But at the same time, the architect will also want to showcase his house. So the first thing to consider in this design is that you are not designing two buildings. You are designing one building that has two functions. So if I'm looking at it from outside, even if the building happens to have two entrances and all whatnot, I should feel like it is one beautiful building. The first way to start from is to look at your form and explore different options for your roof, and also to go out of the ordinary. So if you are creative, for example, you have a hip roof and all you can think about is stopping the hip roof where it is and the rest in school, then you are not pushing the boundaries of what a hip roof can do. Do you understand? If you stretch the hip roof down more than what it's supposed to do, you stretch this, you play around with the form, then that's it. Look at this particular image on your screen, for example. The architect is stretching this roof all the way from the top down to the ground. So it looks like a creative element because of the way he has already played with this form. If he left it without it, then it's just going to be ordinary. So the first thing about creativity is that you need to stretch the boundaries of whatever comes to your mind. So you risk being stupid, but at the same time you risk getting something new. So don't be so safe. Once you've solved the zoning issues, don't be so safe with the form, especially those of you that are designing the architect's residence. Don't be so boring with the form. You go a little bit higher than what is expected. Then finally, those of us that are working on restaurant and shopping mall. Now, these are two buildings that are almost serving the same function because they are a commercial building. So both of them are commercial buildings. In front, they have different functions, but their requirement is almost the same. What I mean is almost the same is that the front end of the building where customers come in is normally big and large, and then they have a back end that services the front end. So when you are doing your zoning and bubble diagram, you may have two different bubble diagrams for each, or you might just have one. because all you need is either the dining in front, then the main thing at the back is, at the heart of it is the kitchen and all of the other services. The kitchen should also have a strong link with the savory if you have a savory in front. The same thing with the shopping mall. Basically, it's the shopping area. The checkout counters may not have any direct access to the back, but the back store should have a link to service the store itself. But the most important thing about this your design is that you have to make sure that you try and get something as creative as possible. A form that will make people, that wow people, that attract people to your building. And you can finish your research, because it's basically zoning left and right. Finish your research, make sure that your considerations for the designs are met in terms of the sitting area, outdoor sitting area. The form should be also not too different. When I mean too different, may not have like two adjacent buildings. So whenever you are doing a design, there should be some consistency in the form. Just before I round up the video, there are some things we are always missing, and it can come up in jury, and you should always think of it. Number one is fire escape. See, once you are designing a building and you have ground and first floor, or you have a lot of people within the building, you should always consider fire escape. Two is access for disabled. Always put ramps at the entrances and exit of your buildings. Always put, in the hospital, definitely you need a ramp even between the ground floor and the first floor. So that, I don't need to ever emphasize that. And then in second year, I've said this and I'll still keep saying it, your graphics and lettering is what will stand out first before we look at your design. So don't joke with your graphics, don't joke with your lettering. Make sure that you use your graphics and lettering to woo the lecturers to your work. Once you have terrible graphics, once your lettering is poor in second year, you are just crying for F, and you may get it. So I wish you all the best. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you at the final defense. Peace. Bye.